Hey guys, hope you all had a happy Thanksgiving. You know, giving thanks is an acknowledgement of our absolute dependence upon another. And I thank God that He is God, not you or me. That would be a lot of work on your plate to manage all of creation. The whole reason this place is in such a mess is that we've tried to do His job. So before you turn this off, such a ridiculous topic to even have to cover. I know it sounds ridiculous, but you are hearing this all over the place, even in offshoots of our own so-called grace camp. People saying, I am the I am God, we are all God, we are just an extension of God. Now I know any normal person hearing this video is thinking you're as dense as a block of wood. You probably think Tupac Shakur was a Jewish holiday. You must figure Taco Bell is a Mexican phone company. I hate to break it to you, Einstein, but you are not God. That's a hell of a lot to multitask, running the entire cosmos. I hope you get the occasional smoke break. Now, this sounds patronizing. An asinine idea provokes an asinine response. Of course, we are inseparably one with God. I would be the last person to challenge that. It's the core of the gospel. It's my life's message, complete and unbroken union. But union does not mean you are God. You are united to Him, not absorbed into Him so as to lose your distinctness. A relationship means two others uniting. So just to play idiot's advocate for a second here, there is a vast portion of the human race, especially religious folks, who do believe the Adamic lie that we are separated from God. Sin caused you to run from God. It never caused God to run from you. Most folks have no grid, in fact, for our complete and total union with God in Jesus Christ. Or they think you're separated from Him until you make that union happen by doing some sinner's prayer, believe and receive repentance routine. Look, no, believing doesn't generate the fact. It's believing the facts that thanks to Jesus, the human race has been united to God. The whole human race has always been united to God. Even to the pagans, Paul says, in Him we live and move and have our being. We depend on Him for existence itself. Separation has always been an illusion of sin. In Him all things hold together. And yes, indeed, He is all in all. But that does not mean a lack of distinct identity between God and humanity. I understand why, when some people start to catch a glimpse of our union, they jump to this polar opposite error to think that we are God or just some extension of Him. Okay? What's happening is you're confusing union with absorption. You were not amalgamated into God so that you no longer have a distinct identity. Now look, I myself have used the term absorbed into God myself over the years. It's a strong term, but I don't mean that in a literal absorption so as to lose your diversity from God. We have indeed been woven into the very life and being of God thanks to Jesus, but not in the sense that your distinction has been erased. The whole thing of union is that it's a bringing together of two things, not just one thing. That's not a union. It's two, okay? Together. All good and proper theology or understanding of God begins with the Trinity. In attacking dualism and these wrong ideas of polar separation from God, we should never veer off into the error that there's absolutely no unique diversity between you and Him. So do not mistake duality for dualism. There are plenty of dualities in this world, night and day, good and evil. Dualism is the inappropriate relation or separation between dualities. Look, Jesus and the Father are one. They are also distinct from one another. That's called the Trinity. Jesus is God, the Father is God, the Spirit is God. Jesus is not the Father. The Father is not the Son. The Spirit is not Father or Son. Unity in distinction. In a similar but much different way, you are united to God. But your union is a participation in the union of Father and Son. You are most definitely not God. No offense, but that doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out. Nevertheless, this union is still beyond our comprehension. Paul said it is no longer I, but Christ. There is a real, vital identification with Christ and an understanding that you are not a separate self. Your life has been swallowed up in His. You must know that Christ is your true identity. You are made in His image, but that doesn't mean you are Christ. John 1:18, no one has ever seen God. The only God who is at the Father's side, He has made Him known. Jesus Christ alone is God in the flesh in the truest sense. We mirror that, but our participation in incarnation is, for lack of better terminology, it is an incarnation once removed. Okay? Unlike pagan concepts still found in many world religions that state we are all emanations of some divine force or forces. Look, Judaic monotheism came on the scene and declared there is a transcendent God who is utterly distinct and above His creation. Everything is not God. That is pantheism. God is not a tree. God is not an Oldsmobile. God is not everything. God is not starvation or rape or a rapist or a pedophile. God is Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And He has adopted us into the divine family. Now, I'm not saying you are a mere creature. You are family. You are offspring. We are gods endowed with divinity. But it is a gift, a dependent participation in His divinity. It does not make us Him. It is a union with Him. We must hold two things in tension here. His utter transcendence, meaning there is an infinite qualitative distinction between creator and creature. He formed us from the mud. We live because He breathed into us. He is still ineffable. The ineffability of God, to me, is one of the most beautiful aspects. He is radically over and above and transcendent, incomprehensible, unexplainable, unsearchable, inexplicable. And yet, He has fully revealed Himself to us in Jesus Christ and woven Himself together with our humanity. Oh, the wonder of the gospel, how it is lost if we try to water down the vast, incalculable, infinite distinction between the creature and the creator. Then we miss the indescribable awe of what it meant for God to step down and become man. What is even the point of the gospel, my friends? If a man is already God, then there was no incarnation because God didn't become man. Man was already God. I mean, by that reasoning, He's not the God-man, He's just the God-God. By that reasoning, there are no humans, just extensions of God. Baloney. Look, God didn't come to rub out your humanity and override it and destroy it. In the incarnation, He came to endorse it. If you were already God, in no need of outside intervention, and there was no point for Jesus to become incarnate and die. So on the one hand, there is this transcendent ineffability over and above us, the infinite qualitative distinction between creature and creator. And yet, the gospel is this radical mystery which is Christ in us, the hope of glory. We are carriers of His presence. We are not His presence, we carry it. Vessels that hold the golden oil, temples that house the living God, branches that carry the sap of the vine, containers, living stones, but more than containers, living recipients of His love, participants in the divine nature, children of God indeed, of the divine kind. Irenaeus really pushed the envelope in rightly saying God became man that men would become God. But you still can't take that statement in a way that erases your distinction. I fully believe in the divinity of humanity. We are of an immortal seed, an incorruptible offspring. You are the divine kind, but you are not the creator of the universe. You are not self-dependent, self-existent, nor are you running the show. You are a dependent of one who is greater than you, yet humbly emptied Himself and gave you His complete worth. If we can be honest here, It's not merely the height of human stupidity to think you are God, but what incalculable arrogance. You are denying your unfathomable need for salvation from an outside source. Consider the utter transcendence and ineffability of God in this passage from Job, Job 38. Let me read this. So amazing. Then the Lord answered Job out of the storm and said, "Who is this that darkens my counsel with words without knowledge? Brace yourself like a man. I will question you, and you shall answer me. Where were you when I laid the earth's foundation? Tell me if you understand. Who marked off its dimensions? Surely you know. Who stretched a measuring line across it? On what were its footings set? Or who laid its cornerstone? While the morning stars sang together and all the angels shouted for joy. Who shut up the sea behind closed doors when it burst forth from a womb? When I made the clouds its garments and wrapped it in thick darkness, when I fixed limits for it and set its doors and bars in place, when I said, thus far you may come and no further, here is where your proud waves halt. Have you ever given orders to the morning or shown the dawn its place, that it might take the earth by its edges and shake the wicked out of it? The earth takes shape like clay under a seal. Its features stand out like those of a garment. The wicked are denied their light, and upraised arm is broken. Have you journeyed to the springs of the sea or walked to the recesses of the deep? Have the gates of death been shown to you? Have you seen the gates of the shadow of death? Have you comprehended the vast expanses of the earth? Tell me, if you know all this, what is the way to the abode of light, and where does darkness reside? Can you take them to their places? Do you know the paths to their dwellings? Surely you know, for you were already born. You've lived so many years. Have you entered the storehouses of the snow and seen the storehouses of the hail, which I reserve for times of trouble, for days of war and battles? What is the way to the place where the lightning is dispersed, or the place where the east winds are scattered over the earth? Who cuts a channel for the torrents of rain and a path for the thunderstorm, or water, land where no man lives, to desert where no one is in it? To satisfy a desolate wasteland and make it sprout with grass? Does rain have a father? Who fathers the drops of dew? From whose womb comes the ice? Who gives birth to the frost from the heavens? When the waters become hard as stone and the surface of the deep is frozen, can you blind the beautiful Pleiades? Or loose the cords of Orion? Can you bring forth the constellations in their seasons, or lead out the bear with its cubs? Do you know the laws of the heavens? Can you set up God's dominion over the earth? Can you raise your voice to the clouds and cover yourself with a flood of water? Do you send the lightning bolts on their way? Do they report to you, here we are? Who endowed the earth with wisdom, or gave understanding to the mind? Who has the wisdom to count the clouds? Who can tip over the water jars of the heavens when the dust becomes hard, like clods of the earth stick together? Do you hunt the prey for the lioness and satisfy the hunger of the lions when they crouch in their dens or lie in wait in the thicket? Who provides food for the raven when its young cry out to God and wonder about for the lack of food? Guys, there are three more chapters of this exact same kind of talk. God clarifying his absolute distinction and otherliness beyond Job's feeble human imagination. And Job replied to the Lord. He said, "You asked, who is this that obscures my plans without knowledge? Surely I spoke of things I did not understand, things too wonderful for me to know." And my favorite line is in chapter 26 when Job says, "And these are but the outer fringes of his works. How faint the whisper we hear of him. Who then can understand the thunder of his power?" Guys, yours is a complete and utter connection to the divine, to the degree that Jesus can even affirm the prophets in saying, "You are gods." You are not God. But indeed, we can rightly say, as he is, so are we in this world. This goes again back to that pervasive topic we've had to touch on recently, that God is not just this nebulous force, and you are not just some extension of divine energy. God is personal, three persons in relation, and you are distinct, yet united. Persons sealed together with his person. Okay? These are two opposite extremes that we can fall into when discussing the Trinity, who is three persons in one essence, one substance. One extreme is to overly focus on the one essence, to wrongly think of God as just this non-personal energy or impersonal force, that he's this nebulous cloud of being that's just the glue of the universe and you're all part of it. And of course, the other extreme is to overly focus on the three persons side to the degree that we fall into polytheism, that there are multiple gods. There are not three gods, but God is one. But God is not just a force. He is three persons in one being. You are an expression of God. You are not an extension of God. You are a picture of God. You are not the artist himself. Unfortunately, there are not many people teaching on union these days. So it's important that we get this right. I have long loved our dear friend Francois Dutoy, whose life message is that Jesus is the clearest mirror picture of who you really are in the eyes of God. Jesus is revealing God's perspective of us, restoring and revealing the divine image in us. But do not confuse that Francois or me or anyone holding to the ancient faith is saying that you are God. Please forgive me if I've ever been sloppy with my own language in trying to hammer out the incredible union that we have with Jesus. Again, this is the core of our entire ministry. It is our mystical union with Christ and the absolute divinity he has bestowed upon us. One mystic of the church, she said that our union with God is like taking two candles and melting them into one ball of wax. I mean, I cannot over-exaggerate how real and solid and concrete and complete this union is. But I have never in a million years suggested that I am God or that I am even an extension of God. Some people lack a doctrine of creation. They don't believe that God could generate something outside of himself. Now, of course, what he does create outside of himself is still in himself because he takes up all the space, but there is a distinction. You are the very offspring of God. Not in the absolute way Jesus is an offspring, the only begotten who eternally proceeded from the Father. You are creation. He is the uncreated one who entered creation. But much more than a trinket that he fashioned, you are more than a creature. You are of the divine family. There are so many ridiculous theological ideas, guys, that will ultimately wreck your buzz and steal our joy away. And the focus gets turned back on you instead of him, and that is where it all goes south. And so, guys, I would recommend you getting plugged in and just drinking deep of a Christocentric message. Man, I would recommend you finding an event on our upcoming limited sabbatical schedule for next year to get a regular religious detox and Holy Ghost impartation intox with folks who are into this finished work, Christ-centered, happy, inebriating, supernatural grace living. For your Christmas shopping, you could pull away with your spouse with us in February for a life-changing marriage retreat weekend in Maui, Hawaii. We still have spaces available. Check it out at thenewmystics.com/retreat. Also, here at Holiday Capitalist Marketing Season, let me tell you from the top that we are offering a 20% discount on everything at our online store right now at johncrowder.net. That's books, audio teachings, even our MP3 Joypod player that has everything on it in terms of full-length teachings. At checkout, you go to the website, enter the code DRUNK between now and December 1st, okay? You got the discount there. Keep in mind, our 2018 mission trips are full. So the only opportunity to travel the nations with me is on a last-minute internship opportunity we just announced for the end of January and beginning of February for this coming year, 2018. I can only bring a handful of guys, and there's just a few slots. This is a European internship going to 11 nations. We're going to be in Germany, Poland, Bulgaria, Macedonia, Kosovo, Serbia, Albania, Montenegro, Bosnia, Herzegovina, Croatia, and France. Okay, look, internships all about having one-on-one time together in an itinerant road school atmosphere, rubbing elbows in that message and tangible, thick shing-ding-ding of the gospel. They are all about impartation, okay? And this is a much cheaper internship than normal, but it is a last-minute, narrow sign-up window, okay? We already have some folks signing up. There's just a couple spots left. You got to get your cash in by December 5th, okay? It's a very short sign-up window. Visit thenewmystics.com/intern to check it out. And then here's a quick rundown of all of our 2018 events. Next week in December, I will be in Hong Kong. In January, I have a mystical school in Charlotte, North Carolina. Also in January, we have a Poland gospel party in Warsaw. And then in February, I will have a mystical school in France. In April, I have a mystical school coming to Springfield, Illinois. And in May, we have a mystical school coming to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. In June, I have my only England event in Bristol, UK. And in August, I have a school in Ireland. Plus a conference with Baxter Kruger and Godfrey Birtle in Scotland. And the three of us also have an exclusive gentleman's retreat on the island of Islay, Scotland, where we'll have theology, worship, and whiskey distillery tasting. So not your average religious men's group. We can only fit 20 guys for that. Guys are already filling up the spaces now, even though it's over a year out. Also, my only event with Baxter in the USA will be in Las Vegas with Zach Wexler next fall. So that's it. Limited sabbatical year schedule. If you see something on there you like, lock in a spot early. Find everything at thenewmystics.com/schools.
Sons of Thunder runs on partnerships and generous contributions from people like you. If you've been blessed by the ministry and want to participate in sharing the gospel and reaching the poor with us, consider becoming a monthly supporter at thenewmystics.com/partners.